So hello again, class, and this will be our first formal lecture on this subject, SOC110, or Understanding Culture, Society, and Politics. Let's start. So this will be our topic for today, the nature, goals, and perspectives of anthropology, sociology, and political science. Again, as I have mentioned from the intro video, we would be using concepts from these fields of study in the field of social sciences in order for us to better understand what's going on in our society, how cultures work, and how the political realm runs. So hopefully at the end of this lecture, we would have a better grasp or understanding of these fields of studies and how they are relevant on studying culture, society, and politics. Before we proceed to that, I would just show you quickly some images or pictures that would pretty much depict how our world is today. Actually, these pictures are would describe the pre-COVID situation. So this one. So of course, we cannot do the interactive discussion here. We would have it in our during our synchronous meetings. But yeah, that would be one of the first things that I would be asking you. What have you noticed? What is the common theme among the different pictures that I have shown in this slide? No, they again very much depict the world today, the 21st century world. And yun yung tulong nitong different fields of study, sociology, anthropology, and political science. They would give us a clearer picture of why these things that were shown in those pictures are happening. So I have a question here. Is it necessary to look into oneself in understanding our culture, society, and even the political world or realm, and vice versa? Is there a link between the self and the society? And also, does change in one realm or domain always inflict change in other aspects of society? So, for example, in the political, does it affect what's happening in cultural cultural? Does it affect what's happening in the societal level? So we are going to answer that later and even in our discussion. So to answer whether if an individual affects what's happening in the society and vice versa, let's have this as our starting point with us being a being. And we know that because we are a being, we exist. With our very existence, it has different facets, and we have a social facet, a cultural facet, and a political facet. It is said here that us being social beings, we always belong to a group and interact with people. As cultural beings, it is also true that we carry our ancestors' traditions, beliefs, and even speak the very language of our parents or of our uh, nationality and practice faith, etc. We are also political beings, whether we agree with it or not, because we are all subjected to power relations. We will explain that later, whether we would like to escape politics or not. We can't help but be a political being because at the very core, we are a being. We exist. So because we exist in this society, it is also a matter of fact that we affect what is happening around us. And vice versa, because of what's happening in the macro level, in the societal level, it also affects our individual choices. We'll see that later. Little do we know that we actually affect how the world runs. Yes, whether yun nga, we are conscious of it or not, the individual choices actually affect how or what happens at the macro level. When we speak of identity, it is something that would reflect or basically speak about who we are, right? And it says here that there is a cyclical relationship between our individual identity and the changes that are happening in the society and culture and even in the political world. So how does that happen? Let's start with the individual. With our um, individual lives, with the choices that we make, we affect how our culture or how our society would be. For example, if we would vote for this certain candidate, political candidate, it would really affect, it would spark change on what will happen in our nation. We can very much see that, di ba, in our uh, current politics. So that alone, yung voting. But not only in that, for example, in our consumption, in our consumer behavior, diba? Those micro choices, would I buy from a local store or from a well-known store or these big companies? That alone would affect or spark change on what is happening on the cultural, even social, societal level. And paano naman itong nasa macro level makaka-affect dun sa ating individual identity? Of course, with the current trends, di ba? A lot of people follow those. Maybe we are one of those who follow, for example, the influencers, and then whatever products they would promote, it would affect our individual identity in a sense that you would want to be identified with or be like that person that you are following. And so whatever um, is promoted by that person or are promoted by these different people would change or affect our individual identity. So there is a cyclical relationship, and we cannot just say that tayo lang yung apektado ng nangyayari sa um, mas malawak na lipunan, or hindi rin naman pwedeng nating sabihin na hindi tayo nakakaapekto sa nangyayari sa malawak na lipunan dahil individual lang tayo. Hindi. Ah, makikita natin as we go along in our discussions, yun nga, in detail on how we can see the cyclical relationship between these two. So we included this question because, of course, we can very much relate to it, especially these days in this time of pandemic. We all have our personal problems. I mean, on top of what we were already experiencing before the pandemic happened. So, for us to have a better understanding of our personal problems, let's take a look at it from a sociological lens. So if we have, or if we want to have a better lens or perspective on our personal troubles or problems, Charles Wright Mills provided a solution for that. He coined this term sociological imagination, Meaning, sabi niya, there is actually a link between our personal troubles and the public issues. And we should see things from that perspective. For example, an unemployed man. This is the very example that he also used. If we are going to view it with a narrow or micro lens and focus on the individual alone, we would easily think that that unemployed man might be tamad, batugan, or um, talagang ayaw niyang maghanap ng trabaho. Yun nga, tamad. But if we are going to view it with or through sociological imagination, we would consider other factors. Bakit unemployed yung isang tao? Maybe because there are the job opportunities are scarce, or in that certain area that he resides in, or in his uh, society, there are the corporations are downsizing, or mataas talaga yung unemployment rate, no? So if we are going to factor in those factors, makikita na natin na ang blame hindi nandun sa individual, no? Another example would be a person having an anorexia nervosa. I think you're very much familiar with it. It is a psychological disorder that um that an individual has if nadidistract ako dun sa asa. Sorry. Ayan, no, makikita talaga din natin yung limitations and challenges ng gantong setting. It's not very conducive for learning, but we have to adjust. Anyway, anorexia nervosa is a psychological disorder wherein a person has a distorted body image, and with that, pinipilit niyang ma-achieve yung certain body image na gusto niya through excessive exercising, or hindi kumakain, or pinipilit na sumuka. So, ganun. If we would view that from a very individual perspective, if we would look at the individual alone as the cause, we might think that nag-iinarte lang yung tao, or masyado lang siyang conscious, or masyado siyang vain, puno siya ng sarili niya. But if we are going to use sociological imagination as a lens to view that condition, we would see that there are factors, and actually based on research, talagang ang factors ay nandun sa macro level, no, with the beauty standards of the society. One can easily be or have a low self-esteem and really see those VS models or Barbie girl body as the standard for beauty. And so, nandun, na-acquire yung ganoong condition or disorder. So, we see from those examples that sociological imagination helps us to veer away from putting the blame on the individual, no, and factor in the different valid factors also that are stemming from the macro level, or yung nangyayari sa lipunan at large. Sabi ayan nga, ni Charles Wright Mills, no, I think this quote would also shed a light on what sociological imagination is. Neither the life of an individual nor the history of a society can be understood without understanding both. So they really go hand in hand, no? And why are we talking about this? This is a primer for, excuse me, ayan, our to the first field of study that we are going to introduce, which is sociology. So basically, in sociology, that's how we view things. We relate the micro to the macro. We try to see patterns in the society for us to better understand why things or how things are working. So by definition, sociology is the scientific study of human society and social interactions, or the social behavior of people and of human groups. Si August Comte nandito dahil bilang siya ang tinalagang ama ng sosyolohiya or the father of sociology simply because he's the one who coined that term. Sorry, ganun lang yun, no? Kung gusto mong maging father of something, mag-invento ka ng term. Hindi. He also, ayun nga, gave birth to sociology by making it as an actual scientific or a systematic study of society. So, of course, before sociology became an actual field of study in the field of social sciences, matetrace natin yung birth niya or yung factors that led into sociology being sociology, from philosophy. So there are a lot of philosophers such as Aristotle, Plato, etc. You would encounter that in your philo subject that already have an interest on studying human behavior and even social behavior of uh, people. Pero syempre, hindi pa scientific yung kanilang ways noon on how they formulate hypothesis or theorize things. And so, neto pa lang, nung time ni August Comte, sa naging actual, legit na scientific study.